Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Continuing reading from Srimad Bhagavad-gita as it is, chapter 11, text number 24. Text 24. Prodhasam samukhyam mam vidhi partha brihaspatim. Oh, this is the wrong chapter. Sorry. Chapter 11, text 24. Nabhasprasham deeptamanekavarnam yathananam deepta vishala netram Drishtva hitam pravyati hantaratma Tritim navindami samam cha Vishnu. O all-pervading Vishnu, I can no longer maintain my equilibrium. Seeing your radiant colors fill the skies and beholding your eyes and mouths, I am afraid. Damshtra karalani chate mukhani Drishtaiva kalanalasanipani Disho na jane na labhecha sharma Sida devesha jagan nivasa. O Lord of Lords, O Refuge of the worlds, please be gracious to me. I cannot keep my balance seeing thus your blazing death-like faces and awful teeth. In all directions I am bewildered. 26, 27. Ami chatam dhritarashtrasya putra sarve sahaiva vanipala sangahai Bhishmo dronasu taputrastatasa sahasmadhiya rapiyoda mukyai bhuktrani tetva brahmana vishanti tamshtra karulani bayanakani Kechid vilagna dashanantareshu sandrishyante churniter utamangahai. All the sons of Dhritarashtra, along with their allied kings, and Bhishma, Drona, Karna, and all the other soldiers are rushing into your mouths, their heads smashed by your fearful teeth. I see that some are being crushed between your teeth as well. 28. Yatha nadinam bhavom bhuvega samudram eva vimukha dravanti Tathavami naraloka vira vishanti vaktrani api vijvalanti. As the rivers flow into the sea, so all the great warriors enter your blazing mouths and perish. Text 29. Yatha pradiptam jvalanam patanga vishanti nashaya samriddha vegaha Tathaiva nashaya vishanti lokas bhavapi vaktrani samriddha vegaha. I see all people rushing with full speed into your mouths as moths dash into a blazing fire. Text 30. Leliyase samana samantal lokan samagran vidanarjaladvihi Tejo bi'apurya jagat samagram Basastavogra pratapanti Vishnu. O Vishnu, I see you devouring all people in your flaming mouths and covering the universe with your immeasurable rays, scorching the worlds. You are manifest. Text 31. Akyahimeko pavan ugra rupo Namostute deva vara prasida Vikyatum ichami bhavantamadhyam nahi prajanami tapa pravritim. O Lord of Lords, so fierce of form, please tell me who you are. I offer my obeisances unto you. Please be gracious to me. I do not know what your mission is, and I desire to hear of it. Text 32. Shibhagavan Kalosmi loka kshaya krit pravritho lokhan samahortum iha pravritaha rithe pitvam na bhavishyanti sarve ye vastitha pratyanikeshu yoda. Blessed Lord said, Time I am, destroyer of the worlds, and I have come to engage all people, with the exception of you, the Pandavas. All the soldiers here on both sides will be slain. Text 33. Tasmatvam utishta yasholabhasva chitva shatrun pungshva rajam samritham mayaivaite nhyatha purvameva nimittamacham bhavasavya sachin. Therefore, get up and prepare to fight. After conquering your enemies, you will enjoy a flourishing kingdom. They are already put to death by my arrangement. And you, O Savyasachin, can be but an instrument in the fight. So we can go to text 32 and read the translation and purport. Would somebody care to read? Okay. 32. It's the only one that has a purport. Oh, it started at 24. I went to 33, huh? Oh, sorry. All right. We'll read 34 real quick. Pranam cha bhishmam cha jayadratham cha karnam tathanya api yodaviran maya hatam stam jahimavyatishta yurasvajaitha sirane sapatnan. The Blessed Lord said, all the great warriors, Drona, Bhishma, Jayadratha, Karna, are already destroyed. Simply fight, and you will vanquish your enemies. Thank you for that. Text 32. The Blessed Lord said, Time I am, destroyer of the worlds, and I have come to engage all people. With the exception of you, the Pandavas, all the soldiers here on both sides will be slain. Purport. Although Arjuna knew that Krishna was his friend and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was nonetheless puzzled by the various forms exhibited by Krishna. Therefore, he asked further about the actual mission of this devastating force. It is written in the Vedas that the Supreme Truth destroys everything, even Brahma. Yasya brahme cha kshatram cha ubhe bhavata udana mrityur yasyo prasechanam kaita vedayatra saha. Eventually, all the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and everyone else are devoured by the Supreme. This form of the Supreme Lord is an all-devouring giant. And here, Krishna presents himself in that form of an all-devouring time. Except for a few Pandavas, everyone who was present in the battlefield would be devoured by him. Arjuna was not in favor of the fight, and he thought it was better not to fight. Then there would be no frustration. In reply, the Lord is saying that if he did not fight, every one of them would be destroyed, for that is his plan. If he stopped fighting, they would die in another way. Death cannot be checked. Even if he did not fight, in fact, they were already dead. Time is destruction, and all manifestations are to be vanquished by the desire of the Supreme Lord. That is the law of nature. Any thoughts, realizations? Sure. What? You have to go get it. Just say what you remember. Well, I was just thinking that that this universal form of the Lord is
is really, it's bewildering. It's mostly bewildering because this material universe, this material creation in general, is that of bewilderment. So this, even though it's amazingly wonderful, it's amazingly bewildering because this material creation is it's meant to bewilder us. It's said in the Srimad Bhagavatam that there's so many different what's it called? There's so many. I'm reading what's it called? The pastime where Jadabharata and Rahugana, Maharaj Rahugana are talking about spiritual topics, and in that Maharaj Jadabharata is saying that he's giving the example of a forest, the material forest, and in that material forest there are like mosquitoes, crickets that drive a man insane, and jackals, wolves, hounds, and foxes that all eat a man's flesh and drink his blood. And these are compared to the material situation, because the conditioned soul is compared to a merchant who's lost his way inside the forest of material existence. And what is it? And so, he goes about his life trying to make money for his family, for his wife and children, and he tries to do other things. I can't remember exactly, but basically what he's doing is he's just wandering in this forest, illusioned that this is thinking that this is the all in all, the greatest. He thinks that his the land that he's from is worshipable. He thinks that his wife and children are the best things in his life. He thinks that his family members, his mother, his father, his family, his relationships, his society, his friendships, his love, all these things are so valuable to him. But it's said at the end of it that at the end of his life, at death, it's all taken away from him. And I like what I'm going to say something from one of the purports that Prabhupada was saying. Actually, a few of them he was saying. He was saying, Srila Prabhupada was describing that in some of the translations, I remember now, what's it called? Shushuganitai Ki Jai. In some of the translations, he was saying that the Jadabharata was saying that that even if he realizes and gets frustrated with all his whole situation, he's homeless, he's bewildered by his family, he gets frustrated and chastises his family. He's disliked by everyone in the material world. He's completely embarrassed. And even though he does this and he gets totally frustrated and he decides to give it all up, he doesn't want it anymore. Even if he does find the association of saintly persons, then it's not long lived. So, but Prabhupada says in multiple times, Prabhupada says, it's not that we're doomed to staying here forever, because nobody's doomed to stay here forever. Everyone eventually goes back to Krishna. Now, whether we want to come back to this material world is our choice, but eventually everyone goes back to the spiritual world who has decided to come to this material world. But what Prabhupada was saying was that sometimes it's seen that a man will get so frustrated with material life that he decides to quit it all and go to the spiritual master or advanced devotees. But because he's so conditioned, he's not able to take advice from advanced devotees or the spiritual master. So eventually he comes back to the material world and he indulges in sex and intoxication. And this whole talk between Maharaj Rahugana and Jadabharata is very nice for anyone who wants to learn about how to get free from the material world, because in that conversation between the two, Jadabharata was describing that association with the devotees is the only way for one to get out of the material world. So so we have to take shelter of the devotees. And I can't remember everything that he was saying, but it's nice that we can see that Srila Prabhupada is making this universal form so wonderful, so amazing, that it's actually bewildering. Imagine if you were to see 1,000 heads and the most shine. I mean, I get bewildered just seeing the sun, just being out in the daytime. The daytime is like bewildering sometimes because you're around other people and you're just like, me personally, I can't look at light for some reason. It like blinds my eye. It's like really glaring and it really affects my eyes. So sometimes when I'm anxious, like I'll be looking around and I'll see all this light and it'll be hitting my eyes. So, and anyway, my point is that this universal form is so bewildering because it's so glaring and it's so effulgent and there's so many things going on with it. I mean, he sees everything in the universe. There's so many of his expansions and things like that. But
Hi.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Thank you for that. It's interesting talking about that. Everybody goes back to Godhead eventually. But we have to question, what that actually is, what that looks like. In the material world, we think of concepts of time, beginning and end. So then there's, eventually there's beginning and end. But from a spiritual perspective, time doesn't exist as we know it. In the spiritual world, time is governed by rasa, by taste, by the experience, by the mood that's going on. For instance, Krishna and his boyhood, his cowherd boyfriends, they could walk to Govardhan, and because they're having so much fun on the walk to Govardhan, time can stretch and that time can last infinitely, just because they're having so much fun and enjoyment. Or if that's not the highlight and the highlight's more to get to Govardhan, then that can really be like a whoosh, and then they get to the next part where they're trying to enjoy there. Time's governed by the rasa. Here, our rasa is governed by time. We try to enjoy, and no matter the instance, it's always stripped away from us. Just like Krishna says here, time I am, destroyer of the worlds. So I bring that up because there's Nitya Bhada and there's, what is it, Siddha Bhada? No, Nitya Bhada and I'm spacing out. Nitya Siddha Yeah, and anyways, there's eternally liberated souls and eternally conditioned souls. Nityabara, Nityasara, and Nityabara. So how can somebody be eternally liberated and eternally conditioned? And then, if we're eternally conditioned, how do we go back to Godhead? So it's a question that arises. So ultimately, what does it come down to? It comes down to our desire. To our desire. If we want to end this suffering in this material world, do we want to go back to Godhead? Then Krishna will give us all facilities so we can. But until then, we get embarrassed over and over and over again in the material world. But Krishna, he sends, his representatives in the forms of the devotees, the guru. Then they teach us how to actually engage in devotional service so we can connect to Krishna nicely, properly. But it's said that when we're chanting Hare Krishna and performing devotional service, before getting initiated, before taking Diksha, before sacrifice, official Diksha, Guru giving you your beads, giving you mantra, all this, then we're just acting in a way to attract that, to bring that moment to us. And then even now, as we're practicing sadhana bhakti, how much bhakti do we have? How much do we really have selfless, loving devotion to Krishna? We may cook something for Krishna, but it may be tinged with what I want to eat, so I'll offer it to Krishna. This is good. This is the practice. But Mother Yashoda, she's cooking for Krishna. She's not thinking about what I want to eat. She's thinking, what is Krishna, my little boy? What does he want? How can he enjoy serving Krishna in this way? This is bhakti. So we practice sadhana bhakti, and we're accruing pious credits, sakriti. It's said that we can go out and give prasadam or get people to take books or do things that's connected to devotional service, but they're largely unaware of what's going on. Sagyata sakriti, meaning like pious credits, but they're not aware of what they're doing. So as devotees, we're aware, so we're trying to act in the right way, and we're acquiring this sakriti, this piety, this good favor of Krishna, you could say. This will attract Krishna's mercy and develop it into bhakti. So, was there any other comments or questions or thoughts that are concise and on point? Okay. I said concise, meaning like point A to point B, not point A to B to C to D to E.
I was just wondering what when we know when this when renunciation is considered false or something like that. Or, yeah,
false renunciation.
Palgu Vairagya. I was watching something on YouTube and this came up, so I was just curious about this.
Early in the Bhagavad-gita, what does Krishna say? He says, those who, I'm paraphrasing, but those who are controlling the external senses while still meditating on sense gratification, know them to be pretenders. So you could take up the path of renunciation and still constantly be meditating on sense gratification or seeking this sense gratification. And as we take up devotional service, coming from a conditional background, it's natural that we think of sense gratification, or we're distracted by this at times. But our aim is not in renunciation. Our aim is in rendering service to Krishna. Renunciation is natural byproduct of serving Krishna. It says that by rendering service to the Lord, one naturally gets detachment from this world. One gets transcendental knowledge, and that leads to detachment. Just performing a renunciation on its own, austerities, renunciation, it has a tendency to make the heart hard because you're just shutting down from everything around. But the devotee, we're engaging everything in the Lord's service. So, what was the term that you called this again? Bhagavad Vairagya. So, what do we practice? Yukta Vairagya, meaning taking everything and yukta, connecting it to Krishna. This is the perfection of renunciation. Because, if I'm given a body, if I'm giving, for instance, say you have very good talents, you're very good at speaking, or you're a very good artist, or you naturally attract a lot of money, and you say, these things are not good for my spiritual life. They make me puffed up. They make, me get fame. Women like me more, whatever it may be. So you say, no, I'm not going to use them. That's renunciation. But a more proper way of renouncing is to say, I have these things, what to do? They're there. I'm not going to, lie, but how to use them properly in Krishna's service. So when we use whatever resources we have, or good qualities, or good traits we have in Krishna's service, this is the proper utilization. And you renounce because you're not using it for yourself. Prabhupada, he gives the example in the Bhagavad-gita, like a person working at a store, a cashier, they're counting so much money throughout the whole year for the store. It doesn't go to them. They're taking the money, they're putting it in the register, and the company pays them their allotted quota. So similarly, we act with whatever qualities, whatever traits we have, and Krishna gives us whatever we deserve. But because we're acting for Krishna's interest, then we won't be contaminated with the reaction. And as practicing sadhana bhakti, we engage whatever propensities we have in Krishna's service, and by doing that, Krishna will purify us from within. Any other points of discussion? Yes, Magadari.
I was hoping to ask you about if you could speak on the nimitta matra.
Nimitta.
Nimitta matra. Yeah, that's the, I think it was number 33.
Nimitta matram. Nimitta matram, just become the cause. Well, let's read the purport, because I see Prabhupada talks about it. Savyasachin refers to one who can shoot arrows very expertly in the field. Thus, Arjuna is addressed as an expert warrior, capable of delivering arrows to kill his enemies. Just become an instrument. Nimitta matram. Prabhupada says here, just become an instrument, and in the word-for-word translation, it says, just become the cause. This word is also very significant. The whole world is moving according to the plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Foolish persons who do not have sufficient knowledge think that nature is moving without a plan, and all manifestations are but accidental formations. They are, it's crazy. There are many so-called scientists who suggest that perhaps it was like this, or maybe like that. There is no question of perhaps and maybe. There is a specific plan being carried out in this material world. What is this plan? The cosmic manifestation is a chance for the conditioned souls to go back to Godhead, back to home. As long as they have the domineering mentality which makes them try to lord it over material nature, they are conditioned. So why are we conditioned in the material world? Yes. Yes. Important to note. But anyone who can understand the plan of the Supreme Lord and cultivate Krishna consciousness is most intelligent. The creation and destruction of the cosmic manifestation are under the superior guidance of God. Thus, the battle of Kurukshetra was fought according to the plan of God. Arjuna was refusing to fight, but he was told that he should fight and at the same time desire the Supreme Lord. Then he would be happy. If one is in full Krishna consciousness and if his life is devoted to his transcendental service, he is perfect. So Prabhupada speaks this purport so nicely because it, this shloka and this purport, it rolls right into the next shloka where Krishna addresses Arjuna and he says, simply fight. And you will vanquish your enemies. So nimitta matram, just become an instrument. We have a domineering mentality. We want to enjoy. We're constantly trying to manipulate and control the environment around us for our enjoyment, for our pleasure, for our comfort. And this is the nature of the mind. And we should all have practical experience of this. I can't speak for others, but I know for myself, I'm sitting and trying to chant japa, and my mind is wandering and thinking about everything that's going to go on in the day or the week or my schedule or whatever, so I can plan and control it so I can be more appeased and be more comfortable in one way. Or if I control that, then all of a sudden it goes to think about the past of how I should have done like this, how I can correct this, how I can rectify. That's the past and the future. But what is Krishna saying? He's saying just fight, be an instrument in the fight. So we just act having faith that Krishna has a plan. Krishna has a plan for myself. Krishna has a plan for you, for all of us individually and collectively. Everybody, we're sitting in this room. It's not for no reason. There's a reason behind everything. And Prabhupada points this out, that the scientists are foolish because they speculate. They say perhaps or maybe. This is the beautiful thing about reading Prabhupada's books, is that after reading Prabhupada's books, you talk to people, and very quickly you can point out when they have no clue what they're talking about. Very quickly. Because they say, maybe, I think, I feel, I believe. All these words are red flags. As soon as you hear this, you take a giant step back and you really, I won't believe anything you're going to say. Take it with a big grain of salt. So then Prabhupada points out that the Lord has a plan. And what is that plan? Part of that plan is what you mentioned in your comment about us being embarrassed in the material world. The Lord's plan is to bring us all back to Godhead. So he created this material world not for his desire, for our desire, because we have this domineering mentality. We wanted to enjoy separate from the Lord. So the Lord says, okay, here you go. Here's a place to enjoy, to do you. And we have this mentality that keeps us away from Krishna. And Krishna's always there in the heart, trying to guide us back to him. But as a devotee takes up devotional service and hears from the Vedic literature, very quickly you can become detached from the whole material world. Because some people are grossly ignorant and they're just selfish. Some people wake up and think about something higher. They want to think about, protecting the earth, protecting the environments, these type of things. The devotee knows this whole universe is created and it's destroyed. It's created and destroyed. It's created and destroyed. So why get so attached to something that's just going through a cyclic existence? Because if we want to go and try to fix all the faults of the Kali Yuga, of all the pollution or fighting for gender rights or equality or, saving the whales, whatever it may be, noble causes from a material perspective, some of them are questionable. From a spiritual perspective and absolute perspective, Shrama Evi Kevalam, simply a waste of time. Simply a waste of time. So what we need is to develop an attraction to hearing Harikatha, hearing the message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then you become more and more aligned with the Lord's will. You understand His plan, and you're not disturbed by anything that happens in the material world. Even kind of rambling to another point at this point, but I was thinking about it earlier, how last time I was giving class, I was talking about Prahlad Maharaj, how he's speaking on enemies and friends. And then earlier today, I was chanting japa, walking around, and some guy rolled down his window and yelled something. I don't know what he said or what his intention. It could have been in favor. I don't even know. But my false ego takes it as oh, this guy's saying something bad to me. Then I started reflecting on what Prahlad Maharaj says. It's that you shouldn't view the world as enemies and friends. We shouldn't make distinctions. This is just a jiva who's covered over by ignorance. He's acting according to his karma. He has the super soul within his heart also. So you could respond to him. And this could happen to anybody, when we're distributing books or somebody comes in the temple or whatever it may be. Somebody acts unfavorable towards us and we deem it that way. You should see that the super soul is in the heart with them. And this person's lost and ignorant, and they're just bound to their karma and the modes of material nature. And we have our karma, so the Lord's coming and giving us what we need to purify us and humble us. And we accept it that way, and we can see things a lot higher perspective, see the Lord's plan. So we should always try to see the Lord's plan, and we can pray. I believe it was Jesus, or it was in the Bible at least, let thy will be done, not my will. And that's what Krishna's asking of Arjuna. That's what Prabhupada is describing. Oh Lord, let thy will be done, not my will. That's a few thoughts. So any other comments, thoughts, burning reflections? Yes.
On this point, there's a prayer that Prahlad Maharaj prays to Nrsimhadev, that he asks that he bless Prahlad that he have no material desires. So I was just wondering if we can sort of imbue all of our activities with that prayer. Is that going to help us be instrumental?
Can you find it specifically, quick, in a timely manner?
This verse?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you can't, you don't have to wait and try to find it, but you had something you want to say? Yes, she can make a comment and you could look for it, or question, or whatever you want to say.
Hare Krishna. I had a question that's not completely on topic.
Sure.
So a few times I've heard devotees say that we should accept where we are and work from there and be compassionate on ourselves. But at the same time, like if we're trying to accept where we are, how do we know when we're ready to advance, I guess? Like, can you speak on that a little bit?
We need to accept where we're at, but always keep our eyes on the goal. If we get too fixed on accepting where we're at, it's not good. You hear from Srila Prabhupada, he very much urgently push people towards pure devotional service. You know, you're not your body, you're not this. So if you understand you're not your body, then all these problems and these things that I associate with, that's not me. But because we're not a pure devotee, it afflicts us. It's very difficult. So yeah, I need to accept where I'm at, that I do have lust, I do have anger, I do have greed, I do have envy. And that's where I'm at. And that's okay from one sense, because I'm coming from a conditioned life and I'm on the right path and I have my vision on the goal. So everything we're building should be building towards that goal, building association, building sadhana, building favorable samskaras. But if I just become, oh yeah, you know, I have lusts, you know, and that's me. So let me operate on this platform and, you know, I'll have a little bit of sense gratification for me and a little for Krishna, a little for me, a little for Krishna. So it can be dangerous because some can really fall into this niche of just, you know, accepting where we're at. So in one sense we should, but in one sense we should totally not. And that should outweigh the accepting where we are, because that's what fuels us to get better. Because yeah, I mean, it's, you know, we hear Krishna Ras Kaviraj speak in the CC and he talks about himself being lower than a worm and stool. So we could say, oh, Prabhu, you know, I'm lower than a worm and stool. But am I really there? Am I really thinking that? You know, I give a class and I speak with whatever little knowledge I have and I think I'm great. Like, this is nonsense when everything I know has been passed down through the parampara. So it's like, also, I could speak really high philosophy. If you're not your body, you need to surrender. You need to give up lust, and then walk off the Vyasa-san, you know, and I'm trying to chant Hare Krishna, and I'm thinking of all this nonsense. So it's important to be real with ourselves of where we're at, so we can preach and follow the process properly. But we should also be disgusted, so we can always have our vision on how to move forward, how to get better, how to heal. Realize that we have a disease. We want to domineer the material energy. We want to control. And I love Prabhupada. He in his purport to the Maha Mantra on this early record that they released, he says it in there beautiful that yeah, this is our problem, is that we're here trying to control the material world, but actually we're becoming more and more entangled in karma, more and more entangled in Maya. So, yeah, in short, be honest and be real with where you're at, you know, because I can say, you know, I'm a pure devotee. I don't have lust. I don't have anger. I don't have this. And this is, I've met a lot of people like born again Christians that have this tendency that they accept this thing and they're like, yeah, this is me. And they're not really real, that they have all these other problems and like deal with it. You know, as devotees, we should look at that and be honest and open. And then, you know, this is why one of the, you know, loving exchanges of devotees is revealing our mind and inquiring from others, so we can really be open about those things and view it in the right light and make progress in the right way. So yeah. You find it at all?
Yeah, the quote is from Srimad Bhagavatam 7.10.7. Translation. O my Lord, best of the givers of benediction, if you at all want to bestow a desirable benediction upon me, then I pray from your lordship that within the core of my heart there be no material desires.
Hmm. And what was your original question?
I wanted to know if achieving this benediction or imbuing this prayer into the very fabric of our devotional service will help us to become instrumental to the Lord's plan.
I mean, this is bhakti when it's connected to Krishna. Hence, Prahlad Maharaj is one of the Mahajanas, showing us how to act. One can desire to have no material desires, but not necessarily be aligned with bhakti, you could say. Because I could desire to have no material desires and end up in Brahmajyoti. It's not a material desire. There's a desire, maybe, to go there. But as we're performing service connected to that, and that being the focus, then yeah, very much so. And this should be a constant meditation, because and connected with Mataji's question, being real with where we're at. It's like, oh, I'm cooking for the Lord, and Krishna's not here. I don't know what he exactly likes, so I'm going to try to use whatever I have, my senses in Krishna's service, and offer him what I think is best and most suitable. But you can become hyper aware of how much your personal interest is intertwined in that, and pray to Krishna, for that to dwindle and unravel, and that what's the Lord's interest to become more prominent. And for my experience, which is unfair for me to speak because, like I said, Prabhupada is so eagerly pushing people to the pure devotional platform, but it doesn't happen overnight because we're so conditioned and contaminated. But the more that we make that a fixed meditation and truly, truly, truly desire that, then rapid growth will take place. And if we truly desire to pray to Krishna in this way, because it's one thing to hear this and think about it, but to really, really meditate and take that into the core of our heart and make that the embodiment of our life. Pleases Krishna. I mean, when Prahlad Maharaj is praying this way, I'd be interested to see the following prayers. But just by rendering devotional service to Krishna, one is free from material desires. Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayati Vashivairagam Gyanam Shiyadahaitukam. By rendering devotional service, one gets transcendental knowledge and detachment from the material world. With detachment from the material world, you realize material desires are trash, they're garbage, they're pollution. Why hold on to garbage and trash? It stinks up the place. So you, with knowledge, you see that and you naturally dispose of them. So don't get too lost in focused on the material desires, because maybe we're not having pure attraction to the Lord like Prahlad did. But if we're naturally attracted, if we're putting our focus towards devotional service and the Lord, then naturally that will be a byproduct. But within that devotional service, we can always have that as a meditation, like a prayer. But you see my distinction there? Because, like I mentioned, you can pray to be free from material desires, but we might not be having that vision, that pure connection like Prahlad. Like I said, it'd be interesting to see his other prayers, because I know Nrsingadev tries to give him benedictions and he's like, no, I don't want. He's like, okay, then if I have to take one, just please give mercy to my father. And then he says, okay, please, I don't. He says, essentially, I always want to preach. Like, I don't want comfort. I always want to preach. Like, give me the blessing so I can always work for the welfare of everybody. So, these other things, they all go together. Anyways, thank you everybody for hearing patiently. Thank you for participating. Shrimad Bhagavad-gita as it is, ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Gaura ki jai. Vancha Kavitaru Vishcha Kripa Sindhavi Vachapatitanam Pavane Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah.